But people don't know I'm the very first male graduate of DeKalb School of the Arts from the dance department. I'm the first. The program started with me. Finding out who Alan was and what Alan was all about and what was going to be, my stake, who was going to be my lasting impression, or what was going to be my contribution. I was the very first, black man that was dancing here, with all the various companies. People don't, but they're like, Alan, people should know that. I was like, well, but why? I knew that it was something that brought joy. For as much as my mom and my dad danced around the house and our family loved music, and dancing was always a very vibrant part because we were still playing 45s. We get the little 45 record, and we had a little record player that was outside. I do remember that. And I got to dance, and it was like, that boy can go. So I knew without knowing that it was something special. I later on found out that, I was gifted with some things as far as music and dance and all of that. So I knew I was going to go that route, even though I was athletic as well. But I knew that the arts and entertainment was something that was pulling me or navigating me, through those waters. And so being able to be a part of the arts community and, shaping a young person, a young black guy here in Atlanta.
And I saw his vision. I saw his vision in his head about what he wanted to do, because we talked about dance company, and when he mentioned that he was in Milwaukee, what was so impressive about him to me, here's this black guy in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee at that time must have been 11% black at that time. He was able to have a successful company, black company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for 5 years. I went, if this brother can do this in Milwaukee, I'm gonna follow him no matter where he goes, because if he can do that, and he's coming back home to Atlanta, the black capital of the state, of course. And I saw his vision. I went, yeah. I've never been a boy. Very opposite of my brother, who I absolutely admired, because he was drop dead gorgeous. He looked just like my dad, well, my biological father. And I thought my biological father was the most handsomest person I'd ever seen in the world. Particularly when I saw a picture of him in his, my dad was in the Navy, I believe it was. Yes, he was in the Navy. And my brother looked just like him, and I wanted to be like that. I take more after my mom, a little bit more round. I was my mother's birthday gift, because I was born on her birthday. I'm a Christmas Eve baby. I'm lucky enough to still have my mom with me today. She'll be 96 come time Christmas Eve. I'll be 76. And that is that's me. But, and I've always leaned more to the artistic side. I didn't like getting dirty. I had more girlfriends than boyfriends when I was coming up. I'm very comfortable with being not a boy. Well, I'm a church boy. And I think it was my mom's dream that I was going to be this pianist in this big church, because that's where I started. I played, because once the dance took over, I kind of lost that. But I played piano, organ, I played flute. So she looked at me and said, "Wonder, what do you think?" And I was always wanted to please mom. I said, yeah, and I was good at it, but I did it to really make my mom happy. So she was very supportive of my music. And so she was really gung-ho as that was what I was going to be. And then this dance thing came in and just obliterated everything. My mother was not supportive of that decision at all. But my stepdad, my mother's fifth husband, who I call my dad, when I think about it, he brings tears to my eyes because I love him. He loved me. The very first time he saw me, I knew that that man loved me. My mother said, I got two sons. My brother was the dad at 15, and she said, my second son is gay. If you have a problem with that, you got a problem with me. And he went, Jackie, I got no problem. And when he walked in, Jack Holloway loved me from the. And when I decided that I was going to dance, my mother was so upset. She had a black cast iron skillet in her hand. She was going to knock me out. And Dad caught her hand and said, LaVon, go walk around for a while, go away. And he calmed her down. I came back. She said, okay, you're going to dance? Fine. But I'm not going to support it at all. And she didn't, but my dad was there.
And, dance was not something that we really could see tangibly, back then, because we only saw dance on television. There wasn't a lot of black male dancers here in our city, and that was not really a career path that was really pushed. But seeing Fame, the movie Fame, and seeing Gene Anthony Ray, and saying, wow, I could do that, and I can do that. I do that already. So it began to kind of put the wheels in motion and say, okay, something in the arts, this Broadway thing is calling me, something I knew I was going to navigate, in the arts community.
I was subbing for a friend of mine, Milton Myers. This was at Alvin's very first school, which was on the east side of New York, not far from Saks Fifth Avenue. And Milton Myers was teaching Horton, and I was studying Horton from him. He called me and asked me to sub for him. I'm subbing for this class. Alan walks in. He must have been about 15, 16 years old. He walks in, and he ends up taking my class. That's how we met. I didn't see Alan until I joined Dallas the Black Dance Theater years after that. But I kept hearing about this name, Alan Gartrell. He kept hearing about mine. And Dallas Black Dance Theater did an all-dance production of the Black opera Porgy and Bess. And a very good friend of mine, Hope Clark, was the choreographer. So she hired me to do Porgy. And she asked me if I knew Alan Gartrell, who at that time was the rehearsal director for Dallas Black Dance Theater. I said, I know that name. Yes, I do. And they shipped me to Dallas. Alan and I hooked up. We became best friends. And it's been that way since then.
Good morning. Thank you for calling the Ritz-Carlton Atlanta. How may I direct your call? I worked at the Ritz-Carlton Atlanta as a PBX operator. I took a sharp turn in 1989. I took a very sharp turn because the person who I had admired and researched and where I wanted to dance and all of that had just passed away. Mr. Ailey had just passed in December of 1989. And I was fresh from Florida A&M University, getting to New York and wanting to get my feet wet and getting ready to, just navigate. And then all of a sudden, he was no longer there. Did not know that it would affect me as deeply as it did. So I moved back home to Atlanta. I stopped dancing. I stopped dancing for about 2 years almost. Just trying to process and navigate, because I thought this was going to be my big chance and my big opportunity. But for some reason, it didn't line up like that, and he was gone before I really was able to get back to him. I had already been introduced to Mr. Ailey, and I already had been there at the school. But now making the choice as an adult to where this is what I'm going to do, and then he was no longer there.
I had already become a member of the junior company, of Alvin's junior company. I was there with them for about a year. I left. I joined a company called George Faison Universal Dance Experience. George Faison was one of Alvin's principal dancers. When he left, started his own company. I was with George for 3.5 years. We gave a concert. My mom and my grandmother and my nephew flew up. They saw me, and my mom said, "Is this what you've been doing in ballet class all these years?" I said, "Yeah, Mom. This is why I left Disney," because she had a fit when I left Disney. She went, "Boy, you left that job?" I said, "Mom, I didn't train all these years to do that. It was a wonderful experience, but I want to do this." And when she saw me, she said, "Now I get it. I will never, ever not see you dance again." And up until she became wheelchair bound, she never missed a performance.
My dance director here, who I grew up dancing with and who kind of was my mentor and really took me in and said, this is what, he's like, okay, it's time to shake out of this. Okay, you have a calling on your life, so let's get to it. I had started a nonprofit while I was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, called the Arts Unlimited Project. And it was an arts organization to where we could fund young kids to come and dance in the summer. And within that, it became the umbrella organization for the Milwaukee Dance Connection, which was the first iteration of our company. And the Atlanta Dance Connection, because connection was always the word. That's why I could never be company, because there was always the connection. You know, I would bring my kids from Milwaukee to Atlanta to dance, and I would take my kids from Atlanta to Milwaukee to dance, so that there was this cross-pollination, you know, of ideas and thoughts and regional thinking in dance. And how can we put all that together? Because they were all being trained by me. So they knew the same philosophy. So that's how it started.
I was going into a field, as far as I know of, no one else in my family had done. So I had nothing to compare to. I was going to be the first. And I was terrified of not making it. I think that's what was my boost. When I left Chicago going to New York, I went, all right, now you've taken this big step. There is no way that you can go there and lose focus. You've got to do this. I was not academically smart. I had to work hard to get good grades. Not like some of my other friends, it just came so easy. I had to study hard in order to get my B's and A's, you know. I had a good grade point average, but I had to work for it. I had to work. And I had a speech impediment. I couldn't say 2 words. Well, it took me forever. And then how to accomplish, you know, how to get over that. Never did know that I would soon have a stepchild that had a speech impediment. So I was able to work with her and teach her. I said, baby, it's all about the breath. It's all about the breath. That when you see it coming, slow down, take a breath, and spit the word out. Yeah.
Okay. Gary Harrison was the very first black man here in the city to have a professional contemporary dance company. There had not been a company such as that here in the city, and that's one of the big things about why I'm here and why I'm doing the work that we do now. There was a company called Barbara Sullivan's Atlanta Dance Theater, and she was probably the oldest black dance company in the city. But they were doing a lot of African and a lot of modern dance. And when Gary came along, he kind of transitioned that, and he began to do more classical ballet, the jazz, the modern, what we know of as more so the Ailey style of dance is what he was now bringing to Atlanta. And so that's how we were trained, and that's how we were introduced to Ailey. We had all of the Ailey teachers and all of the Ailey stars to come to Atlanta to train us. So that marriage began early.
Alan saw the gift in me as a teacher. And that was life-saving, because I was in a bad headspace my last year at Dallas Black Dance Theater. I was beginning to doubt myself. But he came in and went, no, you can teach. That's your gift. And whatever that I can do to keep strengthening that for you, I'm gonna do it.
We decided that there was a need. Well, I always knew that there was a need for a professional black company here because we had never had one. And when Gary passed away, I think we were all too young in our own careers to try to move back to take over the company. So the company did fold, and that's where the rise of the black dance schools came about, because now the dance schools were becoming popular, the competition circuit was becoming popular, and all of those things were navigating for black kids. So, but there still was a void, even with the commercial work that was coming to Atlanta. There was still a void of professional concert dance for those black kids who still wanted the experience of doing classical ballet or modern dance or jazz or those things, or seeking Broadway careers. I think because I've been teaching for so very long, that I began to understand that that was a natural progression for me. After my dance career, professionally dancing, and being able to share with young people and being able to connect with young people. I've always had a knack for attracting young energy. And I think that's only because my energy was youthful, it was exciting, it was bright. It was these different things. So I've always had a knack for bringing people together. I've been doing this a while, and the success rate for what they measure success is. Because you don't have to get to Alvin's, you don't have to get into DTH, you don't have to get into these companies to be successful. This dance education gives you the confidence. It gives you the foresight and the fortitude and the tough skin. It gives you the analytics to know how to go and navigate a space. All of these wonderful things and traits that you're going to need to be a better human. And if you can be a better human in whatever you do, you're going to be successful. Those ones who continue on the dance track, I'm so blessed to know that I was able to provide them with some tools to put in their bag, or to strengthen some things that they needed, or to be there in their corner when they were broken. Because we don't all have that. I was one of the lucky ones and I had it. But there's so many others that did not have the opportunity to be able to say, I can go and try and know if I fail, I got some place to come back to. So I'm very excited to see all of the young people from education, whether they go to college and get degreed, or they go straight into trying to work in the field. Your happiness and being a better human is more important to me than anything else in the world. And if dance and the philosophy of dance has helped to shape that in any sort of way, then I'm good.
We teach our artists that you should be able to do everything. When I was coming up, all of my teachers said, you never want to tell the director no. If they ask you if you can do such, you go yes. If you or if you don't, you can learn it very fast. And we preach that same kind of concept to our artists. Yeah, you're a concert dancer, but you can do commercial. You just have to learn, for dancers that have never been on a movie set. You've got to learn that terminology so that when they speak to you, you know what they're saying, different from the concert world. Or if you're going to a commercial audition, how do you go? You find out what they're looking for. If there's a certain era of the year, or if it's going to be dated, so that you come looking like that. Very different from auditioning in New York for dancers. You come ready to dance. In LA, you have to come looking like the character. So that's a whole different mindset. So we teach our artists to do both, to do both. You never want to say no.
But in the interim, it's always still about the grassroots needs of this city that still does not have a professional, notarized black dance company. Philadelphia has it. Every other major city has a black dance company but us. And we're supposed to be the black capital. We're the black aha. We're the this. You know, we're supposed to zhuzh and do all the things, but then, you know, we can train the dancers here, but then we have to send them away because there's not a company.
Yeah, yeah. Particularly if you are an artist of color, you have to be.
Why
You
that?
have to be. Because the doors aren't open as much as they are for our clear brothers and sisters. Never have been. So you never give them the opportunity to shut the door. That's why you're gonna never know. I can do that. The only regret that I have coming up is that I didn't study tap when my ballet teacher begged me to. Because when I was coming up, if they found out that you were a dancer, the first thing they'd do, oh, do you tap? Because that's all, you know, we were for entertainment. That's all that they looked at us to do is to tap. And I was proud to go, no, I don't know how. And being a black guy, you don't know how to tap? No, never did. I started tapping later because I went, no, that was kind of stupid, you know, because that just, you know, did make you more valuable. But as I got older, I really got tired of faking it. So I finally studied tap to learn how to do it technically. So, but yeah, never give them the chance to shut the door. Yeah, you can do it all.
Hence, what's so interesting is that last week, my business partner and I, we watched a movie, a documentary about Mr. Ailey. And then just a lot about how he had to navigate and what he was going through and dealing with while, you know, raising a company and trying to get funding and a new building. And I saw all of those things that I saw years ago in him, I could see now in myself. Taking the same route, taking some of the same trajectories of how he had to navigate to keep an organization such as the Ailey Company on its feet. Because what people don't know is that the Ailey that they see today is not the Ailey how it started. That one bus with, you know, 15 people in props and costumes and all of that, and driving state to state for one-nighters and all of that. So he gave me the true inspiration to be able to see further than what I could see initially. Here we are in Atlanta 16 years later.